I greet you with Jesus' joy, for it is in him that I live, breathe, move, and have my very being. I am so delighted that you joined Unboxed on Purpose today. We are a podcast created for Favored by the Father Ministries. I am indeed your host, Barbara Arlene Fields Brehon. Our featured guests share how they stepped out of comfort zones to become unboxed. We like to share experiences that lead to the fulfillment of purpose. I pray that each episode helps our audience access their authentic destiny because God did not make mistakes when He created any of us. Today, we have with us a very special guest, none other than Coach Gerald Brence. He is a dedicated educator. He shares insights on the importance of writing in our latest Unboxed on Purpose podcast episode. He has 30 years of coaching experience and 14 years as a district athletic director. Coach Brence's expertise shines through everything that he does. Starting his career at Plano Independent School District in 1981, Coach Brence's journey, let me pause this music for a moment. Coach Brence's journey includes remarkable milestones. As the head football coach and athletic director, he led his team to victory, including 2 state football championships, earning him the title of Texas State Coach of the Year, Coach of the Year in 1994 and 2005. Beyond the field, Coach Brence is a published author. Now, you know that floats my boat up the river. He has 4 books to his name, showcasing his passion for storytelling. As he looks back on his fulfilling career, Coach Brence is set to celebrate his 40th anniversary with his lovely wife, Elizabeth, in 2025. Surrounded by their loving family of 3 sons, 2 daughters-in-law, and 4 grandchildren, they will celebrate in 2025. Today, we honor Coach Gerald Brence because he has a living legacy, an invaluable way of contributing to education and athletics. And so we welcome to Unboxed on Purpose. This is not a mistake. Coach Gerald Brence. Hey there.
Hey, Barbara. Great to be here. Appreciate you having me on today.
I'm so happy that we have crossed paths and that we have entered into this cyberspace today, and we are on stage together in various locations. Let our audience know in what state you are right now, as I am in Virginia.
I'm in the great state of Texas, McKinney, Texas, to be specific. We're about 30 miles north of downtown Dallas. One of the fastest growing towns in America, and it's a great place to live. And I've spent most of my career, and my wife and I raised our kids in Plano, Texas, but we moved up north. It's just about 7-8 miles from Plano, and about 7 years ago, and we really like it here.
That's wonderful, wonderful. I've journeyed around Texas a little bit, just in visiting, but I like living in Virginia. I'll just get on a plane and go somewhere and come on back home. It's just great to have you here. Tell them a little bit more. I think there are a couple of things that I left out about your current work, where you are currently working. I left that out on purpose because I wanted to leave a few things for you to say before we jump into your childhood.
Well, I retired after 39 and a half years at Plano ISD. I thought that was enough. I taught school. I taught English and coached. I was assistant coach football and baseball at Plano Senior High. My mentor, my head coach, Coach Tom Kimbrough, was a hero to me. And when I was an assistant coach, we won 2 state championships, and that was, I just never been around anything like that before. And then in 1992, I was promoted to head coach, and we won a state championship again in 1994. We went to the finals in 93. I had a great start, and I was coach for 16 years. Then my last year, in 2007, the last year that I coached on the field, I was head coach at Plano Senior High football, and then I was a district athletic director at the same time. It was probably the best year I ever had in education. I just had a wonderful time, and then I went straight. I was just an athletic director. I got out of coaching after that, and I did that for a long time, and I finally, I just felt, I really felt like the Lord was telling me, it's time, it's time to move on. And I tell you what, as soon as I retired, 2 months later, COVID hit.
Uh-huh.
And I sat around the house and about went crazy. And one day I told my wife, Beth, I said, I'm going to go find a coaching job. That's what I really love to do. And I'm going to start off at this little Christian school, McKinney Christian Academy. It's just about less than 3 miles from our house.
Right.
I was coaching the next week, and now I teach school there. I teach world literature and American literature. And it's just a wonderful place. Great people. The kids I can't say enough about the kids. And I just really enjoy it. I coached there for 3 years, but I'm not coaching this year. I'm kind of pulling back. I'm really trying to focus a little bit more on my books and teaching in my teaching. And I never rule out going back to coach again. But I'm 65 years old. I think I might have done it enough. I'm gonna have to quit coaching one of these days, anyway. So.
We're not going to worry about that, but I think our audience can tell why our title for this episode is Why Writing is Important. You are a coach, you are a writer, you are an author, you are an English teacher. We might as well just say it like that. Well, you teach American literature and all those things. And I wanted our audience to get a real grasp on that, because we're talking all this athletic stuff, but yet we're talking to a guy who really knows his way around words and syllables.
Well, I appreciate that. I do the best I can. I've always loved to write. When I was in school, when I was a kid, I really wasn't very good at anything but English, believe it or not. And I could write, and I loved to write. And when I got into college and I had to figure out what I was going to do, I just gravitated towards English. And I've just for years and years and years, I've always been writing this and writing that. And kind of my story about the books was, back when I was teaching English in Plano, we would be teaching the classic novels and, To Kill a Mockingbird and Grapes of Wrath and novels like that. And I'd have 35 kids out there in the classroom, and we'd be reading, and half of them were asleep, and I was going, my gosh, what am I going to do here? And I said, close your books, put your books down, and they'd do it. And they thought they were all in trouble, and I'd slam my hand on the table and I'd say, I can write a book as good as this, and of course that woke them all. Oh no, you can't, coach. No, you can't, and I said, yes, I can. I'll show you someday. And I was really just using it as a way to wake them up and get them interested, and that kind of thing. Well, as the years went by, when I got out of coaching, I was athletic director. I was on the road all the time. We played everywhere, all over the state of Texas, and I was in a hotel room, I didn't have much to do. So the thought hit me, I need to back up what I said back when I was teaching school. So that's when I started trying to put, a book together, and didn't know what I was doing, had no idea. And that's one thing about writing books. You don't have very many peers when it comes to writing a book. There's just not very many people out there that do that sort of thing. Most people think it's kind of crazy, but I just kind of made it up as I went along and trusted my instincts. And now I've written 4 of them.
Isn't that amazing? But it's not really amazing, because it was in you all the time. You usually ask at the beginning of the podcast about your passions in life as a child, but you've already spewed that out, in that you always liked to write. You were a reader, you were a writer, and all that. And so now we know how the first book came to be. So before we unpack a little bit more of that, let's get a little bit more into you, the person, in terms of your passions and influences in life. Who would you say had the biggest influence on your life? I'm going to put myself on backstage and give you open mic to talk about your biggest influence and maybe stepping outside of that dark place, that dark box that we're talking about, unboxed on purpose. Influence and becoming unboxed.
Well, I tell this story a lot, it's this is exactly the way it happened. I'm not fabricating anything, but when I was growing up, we lived in a small town in Oklahoma, Cordell, Oklahoma, out on the edge of town, and we farmed. My dad farmed, and he was in the Army, and my mother worked, my brother and sister and I, and we worked. That's what we did. We worked. You know, we'd work all day at a job, go to school, and then we'd go farm at night. And but there was one thing that my mom and dad were just always prioritized was sports. I love sports. I played football, basketball, and baseball. And you know, if we had a game or we had practice or something like that, that came first. My brother was more inclined to music, but he became a band director, and then a principal. But I was mainly into sports, and so I played football. And back in those days, the Oklahoma Sooners were winning national championships quite often. And one day on a Saturday night, this football player named Eddie Foster, he was a starting offensive tackle for Oklahoma. He was going to come and speak to the FCA at the First Baptist Church. And I couldn't wait. I was going to go see that. I wanted to meet that OU football player. That was a big deal. It was in the spring, and I remember it was cold that day and rainy. And I remember I was sick. I was sick all day, and I had to walk to the church. Hold on, that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. All that stuff. But I finally, in the afternoon, I got up and I took a shower, and I walked down there to hear this OU football player. Now, I didn't go down there to hear the gospel. I didn't go down there to go to church. I went down there to hear this football player. And so we got there, and I'll never forget what he said. He said, his name is Eddie Foster. He was from Monahans, Texas. And he said that, he's to all you guys and girls out there right now, you don't have to worry about your husband. You don't have to play the boyfriend girlfriend thing. You don't have to do that. All you got to do is establish a relationship with Christ, pray about it, and then trust God in His time frame that He will bring you to your husband and your wife when He's ready for it, not you. Don't worry about it. And that made quite an impression on me. And I did have, I had friends, girlfriends, and all that stuff. But when I got to Plano, when I graduated from college and I came down to Texas to start coaching, one time this friend of mine, teacher, came up to him and said she wanted me to meet her friend, and all that. And I said, I'm not into blind dates or anything. She said, I'll give you your phone number. Put it in her mailbox. She put it in my mailbox, and I didn't think anything of it. A calendar year went by. I never did call her or anything. And the same gal, she comes by and she says, I want you to meet a friend of mine. She goes, I'll put her phone number in your mailbox. And I said, oh, well, I've already got it. I still have it. And so I called her, and when I called on the other end of the line, it was my wife, Beth. I didn't even know what she looked like. And I knew when I was talking to her on the phone that this was probably it. I could just tell. It happened exactly like Eddie Foster said it would. It was my first introduction to faith. Where I kind of understood what faith was, trusting long term. And I tell that story. That's the way it happened. I'm not exaggerating it at all. And as I've gotten older, I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. Things that probably not so good. But I am a very faithful person, and I believe in. I believe in God, and I believe in God's grace. And I believe, if I believe anything, I believe that God speaks to you through your instincts, through the Holy Spirit. And that's what I believe, and that's how I lead my life.
That's the best way, in my opinion, because I too live with the Spirit of God leading the way. And I love the story that you told. I had heard you tell me that before about how you met your wife and all of that. It's just a phenomenal way of following God. And I love that as an example of faith and stepping out. And so let's talk about these boxes that may have popped up in your life from time to time. Is there a particular time when you actually, I know you stepped out of the box when you walked that distance sick and you got to meet the professional athlete there, and that eventually led into your being married to your lifelong love? Is there another time that you want to share about stepping outside of a box, knowing that sometimes we are confined, and the stories that you share today will resonate with someone who is listening, that will help them step out of a box of confinement?
The first thing that comes to my mind when we talk about that was when the first book that I ever put into print and put out there. I talked about a while ago. I didn't know anybody I'd never met anybody that had ever written a book. Had no experience on that. I just was going to do it. I never even thought twice. Once I got started, I never thought twice about not putting it into print and getting it out. There's a little book called The 70-30 Split. And it's about high school football. And I just started off by just told some stories that I had heard through the years, about General Douglas MacArthur and Bruce Springsteen, and just general human interest stories about stories from the heart. And the book, the title is it. I was a coach for years and years and years, and I used to talk to the kids about it all the time. That football teams, baseball, basketball, doesn't matter, but all teams are made up. It's 70% about the players, 70%. They're 3/4 of the deal. But then there's about 30% of it, that's about the coaches, the plan, the organization, lifting weights, running, the plays you're going to run, all that stuff. And, that's where it starts on every team at the start of the year. 70% players, 30% coaches, and it's mainly about the players. But then every day after that gap starts closing, it gets all the way down, like in the pros. They get it down. It's about 52% players, 48 the plan, the strategy and all that. But it never tips in favor of the coaches. It's always about who has better players. But everything from how you approach the players, your strategy, offense you run, defense you run, it all starts to factor in, and that's how games are won and lost. And that's what the book's about. And I really enjoyed writing. Had a lot of fun with it. Pretty rough, pretty crude. You want to know the truth, but I remember people, doing double takes and kind of rolling their eyes at me when I was telling them I was going to publish a book, and but I have no remorse about it at all.
You've written 3 other books. Would you go ahead and tell us about those other 3 books and that whole idea about why writing is important?
Well, of course, the 70-30 Split was a nonfiction book. It was I wouldn't call it a self-help book or anything like that. It's just information for people who really like sports and football. After that, though, I was really into more historical stuff, and storytelling, because that's what I really love to do, is tell stories. And the next, I was kind of searching for a book, just kind of relying on my instincts. And my wife and I were in San Francisco on vacation, and we were at the I'll never forget it. We were at the airport, and I didn't have anything to do, because there's not very many bookstores that I even come close to that I don't explore, So I was in a bookstore at the airport just looking around, and I saw this book about the history of San Francisco called the Barbary Coast, and it was about back in the gold rush day, all the crazy stuff that was going on in San Francisco, incredible. And I read most of that book by the time we got home, on the plane. And so I put together a story about this minister he was started out in Mississippi, and he Lord was telling him to go to San Francisco where that gold rush is going on. It's back in the 1850s, and try to stamp out some of that debauchery going on out there. And he drug along his daughter, who did not want to come because her mother, his wife, had just passed away. And they were fighting all the way through it, and it went through Austin, and then of course it went through, and it was about the Comanche and the Apache the Indian tribes, and the Texas Rangers, and the Colt Navy revolver. And then of course when we got the story finally made its way out there to California, all the crazy stuff that was going on in San Francisco. But that's what it's about. It's a love story, and because the minister's daughter was along with the trip, and she did not want to go, but she was not going to let her father go by himself. And then there's this hapless Texas Ranger who had to get kicked out of the Rangers because kicked out of the Texas Ranger organization because he got sent on a mission, and they were have a tremendous villain in this story, Soares Aguilar, who robbed them and robbed a payroll robbery that this Ranger was on. They all got kicked out. He didn't have a job, so he got a job with one of his best friends as a guard on a stagecoach, heading for San Francisco. And so all the parties met right out there, and a lot of truth in it, a lot of historical fiction, but then a lot of it's just stuff that I just came up with.
I realize that, and because I am a retired reading specialist, there's a whole lot of stuff that's in this conversation that's really exciting me. The whole idea of historical fiction is fascinating, and the way that you started with something on a trip, and then you couldn't put the book down, ended up writing a story and publishing your own book about it. But then there are 2 other books, and so we're gonna put across the screen throughout this episode, the remainder of the episode, what the books are that you've written. Give people a chance to get online and get those books and communicate with you about those things. And clearly we know that you think, and of course I agree with you, that writing is so important. And so in that vein, what would you advise the younger you? Any advice you would give to the younger you if you roll it back and maybe you're in your late teens, early 20s? What advice would you give yourself?
Writing makes you pay attention to your life. It makes you focus more on what you are doing every day with other people, and what you're doing with your life. That's one of the top things. Writing brings things to your attention that you might not ever think about if you never participate. That's what I teach at McKinney Christian Academy. I tell everybody I teach writing. That's my deal. Everything from format, structure, but content, that's the main thing, and how to come up with ideas and how to think things through and think a little bit differently. But it helps you just understand yourself and things that come across your desk on an everyday basis that you might not think about before. I wrote a couple of things down. I also think it builds your confidence. When, I believe that I really am a staunch believer that, faith and confidence, those are the keys to success. You need faith. You need something to rely on. Life is much bigger than just yourself, but you've got to have confidence to carry it on. And if you're consistent about writing things down, even it might not be actual writing a story or writing an essay or anything like that, just making lists, little things like that really help people, I think. And I just go on and on and on. help you find solutions, to things. You can't figure out which way you need to go. Write about it. You write about it. You putting it on paper. You'll be surprised how things will start coming out, flowing out of your heart that you've never thought about before. And I could go on and on and on, but everybody needs to learn about writing, think about writing, and then actually put it into practice.
Because our title is Why Writing is Important. Go on and on. Just a little teeny bit more, please. Go ahead. Go on.
Well,
I know you've got some more stuff. Go ahead and go.
I do. First, recording and sharing information, and you think about, I'm no spring chicken anymore, and as you get older, you better get things down on paper the way you want them recorded, and that's a very important thing. Obviously it helps you grow, it helps you change, but you want to know the truth, Barbara? I think the thing that gets me more excited about writing than anything else is that it leaves a legacy.
Yes.
It's going to outlive you.
Yes.
It's going to be around for years and years and years. And if you don't do it, you don't write things down, your kids and your grandkids and your great grandkids, they have nothing on paper from you. Just like I encourage people with their own personal Bibles, put your family pictures and your little keepsake things that you can take a little glue stick and just glue it into your Bible. Put things like that into your Bible and pass that down through your family. And of course, if you'll take the time to write a few things out, my dad used to do that all the time. He would write things out. And I remember when I was a kid, I think, I'll never read that. Nobody's ever going to read that. But you know what? I was wrong. As I got older, I was wrong. I did read it. It was very interesting. And a lot of people are into genealogy. I'm not. I don't write much about genealogy, but a lot of people really like to explore their genealogy and write about it. And there's nothing wrong. I call it modeling in class, in a lot of my books. I've taken people that I've known in the past, or I still know, people that have passed on. And when I'm looking for a character in a book, I model them after somebody that I know. I change the name, but I model just their personality. The story goes a different direction, but you can use their personality and to really help you write an interesting story. And I think that's fine, to take, some of your past family members, and, you can explore and have a lot of fun with that.
I am from a large family, and I have quite a few, I would love to say, characters that I could write about.
Yeah.
We could interweave some fascinating things. And I was also considering, as you were speaking, a parallel, because I'm an adjunct professor for a D-Min, a Doctor of Ministry cohort group, and semester has just begun. First quarter has just begun. And one of the first assignments I gave them for the class on spiritual formation was to write a spiritual timeline, read a spiritual autobiography, write your own autobiography from a spiritual standpoint. Because as disciple makers and people studying to be better at this work that we do in ministry, how can you do it more effectively if you don't self-evaluate, self-analyze to understand who it is that you are and how you got to be that way? And so, oh yes, writing is really, really important. And I'm going to milk this and maybe even show some excerpts of this podcast to them. They'll be a captive audience. They won't be able to go anywhere. So I'm thinking we'll have to do that, because there's so much in what you are saying. Is there anything else you want to tell us about the importance of writing and how you got to do it, and what you have planned for your books and writing and teaching and lecturing and anything else connected to this fine thing that we call communication skills?
I'm just, again, trying to feel my way through the publishing business, the books. It's a tough business. It's a very competitive business. And, I don't think people read as much as they used to. I tell the students all the time that, just not that long ago, probably the number one source of number one type of entertainment was reading books, magazines, newspapers, whatever. And I just don't know if our society does it that much, but there are still people out there that do read a lot. And I don't really care that much about that. I'm going to write anyway, but I'm trying to explore that and get my books going. My publisher, I'm with Quippy Quill out of Wilmington, Delaware. They've been really good to me. And they wanted me to write. I started off with a nonfiction book, the 70-30 split. And then I wrote 3, I call them mysteries and thrillers. They're historical fiction, but they all have good endings. I think they're good. Ox and the Culvert, I talked about that a while ago. Another book called Agent 49 was about the passing of the blueprint of the atom bomb back in the days of Los Alamos when they were building the bomb and all that. And a story I think every American ought to hear. It's an incredible story. And then my last book was a little book called Old Money. It was about these 3 kids in this small town take on the town bully. And it's more of a contemporary type book, but I really enjoyed that. But now they're interested. They want me to go back and they want me to write another nonfiction book. So I'm working on that right now, and I'm going to try to get it out. I'm going to try to take a shot at getting it out this next summer. I don't know if I'll be finished with it that quick, but I'm really having fun with it now. Sometimes I encourage people, when you're in the mood to write, you better write, because that's the best time. That's when you're probably going to do your best work. And so I fluctuate. Sometimes I'll write every day for a week, and then I might go a month and I might not write anything. It's just when the feeling hits me, I'll go. But I'm going to continue to teach school. I really enjoy it at McKinney Christian. I feel it gives me some purpose, gives me something to do, gives me being in a Christian environment is just awesome. I talk about the gospel anytime I want to. And not that I dwell on it a lot, but I just try to fit it in any way I can. I try to use just little ways, to get in. I always try to put it in first, put Christ first. And then I get into the school stuff, and I tell the kids to hold me accountable, because sometimes I get in a hurry and I start off, and they do. They hold me accountable. They say, "Hey, Coach, we got to start off with our lesson today and a little prayer." I enjoy that so much, and I value it so much. So that's where I'm going right now. And you know what? I don't worry about the future too much. I'm not too anxious about that. I'm very grateful where I am now, and I'm in a very peaceful time. And I just want to contribute. I want to do something that matters. That's the main thing I want to. And whatever it is, I'm ready to go.
I think your answer to this question is going to be something that really matters to people who are listening. I believe it will resonate with them. When we think about future generations who are yet unborn, who may tap and listen to this podcast, what advice would you give them to keep them from being stuck in a box, to help them to pursue their identity?
Well, when my wife and I raised our kids, we were firm with them. We had discipline, but we one of the things we didn't do is we didn't give them too much. They didn't have fancy cars and a lot of money and all that. And, now when I get together with the kids, I tell them, I said, the best thing we ever did for you guys is we didn't give you too much. And they had to learn the work ethic. And school was always a priority to us, but we raised our kids in a church. And I any young couple that has kids, that's the first thing you need to do is get together on church. It's like you might have somebody that come from a Baptist church, and another person comes from a Methodist church or a Catholic church or whatever. You need to get together on church, and you need to raise your kids in a church. And there's going to be always, of course, we know there's going to be a lot of problems down the road, but golly, churches will just soothe so many problems if kids grow up in a sound environment like that, in a gospel filled church. And just encourage them, and again, build their confidence any way you can. Build their confidence and try to put them out there where they're prepared. And the main way they can be prepared is to know the Lord.
It sounded like there was something coming behind that, so I was hesitating. It was like, oops, he didn't say anything.
I try not to do it. I talk about the Lord my own way, and like all my books, same thing, subtly. There's a lot of people out there that they're not interested in hearing anything about church. They're not interested in that. And so you can either, some people take the attitude of, well, if they're not going to listen, I'm just going to go on to the next guy. And I'm kind of more, I guess I'm stubborn, I kind of want to keep trying. And, I think though that the best way to do it is just, they read you as an individual and how you conduct yourself, how you carry yourself. And that's how I used to have a saying, power, money, all that stuff. That's all small potatoes. All that stuff's small potatoes. Back when I was head coach and athletic director and all that, that stuff's nothing. It's all fleeting, but influence goes into heaven, and positive influence on people. If you can do that, that's what's important.
It is important. It is so important. And as you talk about the influences and how you and your wife came together to raise your children, making concrete, firm decisions and sticking to them, that is so important. And I just value you and how you conduct yourself conversationally, sharing your faith by the way you live. And this Christianity is a lifestyle, and people read the sermon through your actions and hear your voice and how you love them, how you love on them. And that makes all the difference in the world. They see Jesus because they see him in us, not always because of what we say, but how we live. And so right now, I just want to give one, before I forget to ask you, would you give the audience your contact information? Because I'm sure they want to get a hand on your books. I'm sure they may want to reach out to you and talk a little bit more with you, email you or text you or what have you. I don't know what information you want to give, where they can reach out directly to you and connect with the author, Coach Brence.
It's very easy. Just geraldbrence.com. That's my website. I never had a website like this one. I did it. This is my second website, but Quippy Quill really has done a good job with that, and we're building it. But just go to geraldbrence.com. You can take a look at all my books, and there's a place on there where you could email me directly, and I would love to hear from anybody interested.
Sounds like a plan. We'll put that on the screen. If by the time they actually see this, it will be on the screen. But anyway, this has been a pleasure. Is there anything else that you would like to say in parting that has not been said that you want to share with us?
I think we covered it pretty well, and I just really appreciate the opportunity, Barbara, and I really appreciate your program. I think you're really doing a lot of good, and thank you for having me today. I really enjoyed it.
God bless you. Thank you so much, Coach Gerald Brence. We just thank you. You are unboxed on purpose. You're distinct in your own way, and you've encouraged others to understand the importance of writing for getting to know yourself. And that has a lot to do with our personal purpose in life. as divinely ordained and created by God. And so
All right.
now, turning to our audience, I want you to join us every week. We usually release podcasts on Thursdays, and the episodes are generally somewhere around 30 minutes or so. Unboxed on purpose, refreshing conversations, sharing experiences that shape our faith, that shape our right now as well as our future. We release those episodes on our YouTube channel, Favored by the Father Ministries Facebook page, our LinkedIn page, and most podcast platforms. As we evolve, we are like butterflies that come out of a box and allow the Holy Spirit to advance us to immeasurable heights. The Holy Spirit can take us to lofty levels in the Lord. And so I want you to fulfill your purpose. I want you to bloom wherever you are planted. And I definitely want you to remain favored by the Father. Thank you again, Coach Brence.
Thank you.
I'll see everybody next week. Remain favored and be unboxed on purpose. Favored by the Father Ministries is hosting a fall spiritual retreat. Oh, yes, we are having a fall spiritual retreat at the Williamsburg Christian Retreat Center, which is located in Toano, Virginia, November 14th and 15th, 2024, as promises to give you a spiritual enlightenment that you have never seen before. This spiritual retreat is designed to provide respite and nurture for those who constantly pour into others. This is a getaway for one night filled with spiritual teachings, meditation, connecting with nature. Come to our fall spiritual retreat with your mentor, with your mentee, so that you can share some special moments together, stepping aside from the routine of life. We are asking for a nominal fee of $180 that includes all of these things: room, dinner, breakfast, snacks, and all retreat materials and activities. The registration fees are due by November the 1st, and the point of contact is Barbara Brehon. You may email favoredbythefather.com. You may email favoredbythefather.com. You may register on Eventbrite. For anyone needing an alternate payment option, you may mail a check payable to Favored by the Father Ministries. That will be Post Office Box 1114, Tappahannock, Virginia 22560. Tappahannock, Virginia, TAPPAHANNOCK. Include a note with your email address and phone number for confirmation of receipt. All checks must clear by November the 1st, which is the registration cutoff date. Another option is to Cash App Barbara Brehon, sending a message again through Barbara at favoredbythefather.com. Our email address is barbara@favoredbythefather.com. You may find us on Facebook or LinkedIn, and you can send your messages to us if you have questions. We are looking forward to an inspirational experience at our fall spiritual retreat, tucked away behind luscious trees that show the magnificent splendor of God's creation. Come, join us there for our fall spiritual retreat, November 14th and 15th, 2024. Join us. You won't be disappointed, because this is designed with you in mind. Remain favored by the Father.